Hi, welcome to Africa Oil Week. I'm Malcolm Graham Wood from Malcy's blog, which I'm writing this week from Cape Town.
Well, I think firstly, the most important thing is for us to be readmitted into the UK Stock Exchange. As you said, it's by means of reverse takeover. So on completion and readmission, I will effectively become the CEO of Agulhas, which is the new name of the listed entity. And it gives us the opportunity to move away from a family-run business to a corporate entity with a broad stock, with a broad shareholder base, and for us to be able to deliver the strategies which we've got lined up for the port, the diversification side, and also, most importantly, from an oil and gas point of view, to take full advantage of the opportunities coming up with the Mozambique LNG.
South Africa is a joint venture with New Age, and we have together an interest in the block operated by New Age that's next door to where Total made their Brulpadda discovery. Yeah. Now, the Total block is quite a large one, and the Utaniqua Basin in which they made that discovery is kind of a long, thin strip along the coast. Yeah. So, although we're next door, I should say they're at the other end of the thing. But even so, it is one long basin, and we do have quite a large 360-odd million barrel prospect in our section of the Utaniqua Basin. And Total are planning quite an aggressive campaign of drilling and seismic along the Utaniqua Basin towards us. So we're very excited about that. We've been trying to farm that out together with New Age over the last few months. We've had a data room open. There's a lot of interest, as you can imagine. And again, I think we're doing a little bit of reprocessing of existing seismic as well at the moment on that. And our intention is not to hurry too much, because all the time we're getting more information from Total's work.
But back to your question on what else we intend to do, we're finalising establishing a base in Nigeria now. We're a regular player there. We're in the country virtually all the time somebody's there. So we're regarded now as being very much one of the local players. And with our technical operating background, healthy cash balance, no debt, you can imagine, as well as improving the current assets, being involved with that, we would look to see what else we may be able to do within the country too.
On the whole, we're very optimistic, and we've, absolutely. I mean, we've seen in the last several months a lot more liquidity in the Nigerian market, for example, particularly Nigerian banks. They now have access to dollars that 12 months ago they didn't have. And institutionally, there are a number of newer or infrastructure type funds that are prepared to fund midstream, downstream, particularly gas, in sub-Saharan Africa that again weren't there 2 or 3 years ago. So I think overall we're in an upward curve in terms of capital coming back into the sector.
What was interesting to me is, as everybody knows, the Chinese economy has slowed down a bit, but their entry into Africa and continuous investment into Africa has not stopped. There are certain assets and commodities that they're looking for from Africa. And I found it also interesting how the investors were different. Initially, when you used to think about Chinese investors, you would think about state-owned entities. Now you have private capital, you have trade finance that can come into the countries, and people who are looking for commodities as well. So the change in the investor means different type of partnerships and opportunities for the African mining companies that we took to China.
Well, in terms of oil and gas and hydrocarbons generally, it's a hugely important time in capital markets. Notwithstanding, Brent prices hovering around the $60 mark. Yesterday, we did have the launch of the largest, potentially the largest IPO to date, that of Saudi Aramco, listing on the Tadawul for an offer size that could be anywhere in the region of $25 to $60 billion. So huge time in capital markets for oil and gas. Generally, in Africa and our involvement with the oil industry, we've had 3 recent transactions of note. One of PetroTal late last year that raised capital, and then 2 introductions this year, that of Valora in Turkey and Valco. We're very, very big. Oil and gas is one of our top 3 sectors, 160 companies, $1.2 trillion.
Well, you've got Guyana, of course, 13 billion barrels. We've done a little bit of work in Suriname, and we're seeing across the border a transition of what they're finding there that hasn't yet been realised. Apache are drilling a well there right now, 100%. Now, no major companies drills 100% of a well unless there's some ulterior motive or reason. In their case, I think it's because they're confident. Let's hope so, because that would be great for Guyana. Africa, I think there are some tremendous hotspots still to be found. As a geologist, I wasn't myself convinced about Namibia until I worked for Serica and realised that there's potentially a regional seal that wasn't recognised, above which most of the wells that have been unsuccessful have been drilled. Below that, you have only 2 wells that have both found oil and gas, one in the Orange Basin and the Wingat well in the Walvis Basin. So there are geological plays with new technologies that I think are going to unlock and surprise people in Africa, as I guess Mozambique did, 10 years ago for Cove and others. So let's hope there are some surprises. But I think Africa, together with places like Ghana, are going to be certainly a serious place to go hunting if you're looking for that sort of E&P activity. So Africa's here to stay big time.
We know the African market very well, but we feel that there's a lot more to do in Africa. We feel Africa has a great future. And so we recently recruited Titus, who joined us to head up our newly fully fledged Africa desk. So welcome, Titus. I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you. Well, what we're doing right now, as Ian says, we're doing stuff across the spectrum, the infra spectrum, and one of the most recent projects I'm actually working on is a port.
Oh, right. Whereabouts?
In Cameroon.
In Cameroon, yeah.
So we're advising the preferred bidder of the Douala port, and we're also advising another company in the very early stages of a captive port development in Guinea.
In Guinea, okay, because the port market in Africa in general is really perking up. People are suddenly realising that there's probably a limited capacity and there's a lot of growth to develop these ports. So it's quite an exciting area, isn't it?
Well, it is. As you're aware, there's been a lot of talk about intra-Africa trade. But I think they took the eye off the ball on how you actually trade. And I think there's a reckoning now that you need the ports if you were to trade with the rest of the world and with the rest of Africa.
Yeah, so a couple of weeks ago we closed the deal with Savannah Petroleum, so we assisted them. So it's a large market cap, unfortunately, or not unfortunately for them, unfortunately for us. Yeah, large market cap from $200 million or excess of $200 million. We provided them $5 million of bridge financing to close the seven energy acquisition. So again, where we are helping with the company there is, a company could go to the market, raise that equity, whereas the company is saying that we trust them and we believe that they will close the transaction pretty soon.
A bit more detail. It's quite tricky. You see right next to us, there's the big function of the Africa Oil Week, and all the big players in the oil world are there. They're not here for Guyana. They're here for Namibia, and they're here for additional opportunities in South Africa, Namibia, and the west coast of Africa. We meet everyone. I can tell you honestly, I see such a growing inbound interest in Namibia. If it wasn't for Guyana, with such a great exploration success, Namibia was the #1 hotspot for exploration. Exxon are now there with 5 blocks. Shell and Cosmos are there. Total are spudding a well in April, potentially April, the Venus one, with Impact. You're going to see a well being drilled by Moore and Prom. Exxon and Galp are going to drill a well next year. And wherever these big companies, Exxon, Total, Shell, are going, the other big companies must follow and must take some acreage position, because Namibia is going to be the next big oil discovery of the world. In my mind, it will take potentially a year to 2, let's say 24 months, until Namibia will announce a major oil discovery that will open up the entire play. So we are here in Africa, and you know, we both love Africa, and we started here in Africa. Namibia is going to be very, very interesting in the years to come.
Again, some of the people you've interviewed, you probably realise we've now got a joint venture with Moshi Capital in Joburg. You've interviewed Mamecha, so we're getting very involved in Africa in that respect. We've got now a very successful office in Shanghai. And one of the most exciting things we're doing is linking Africa and China together through London, making a sort of triangle. And it's going really well, and we're starting to do some really quite serious business.